Well, George Galloway joins us now alongside Afghanistan war veteran Sergeant Rick Clement. Welcome to both of you. I mean, this is a huge decision that's being made today because whichever side you fall on this, you potentially have blood on your hands either way. I want to speak to you first of all because you paid a huge price fighting for your country and yet you still back this action. Why is that?
Just because my experiences fighting in both Iraq and Afghanistan, I felt that we did a great job over there of stopping terrorist activity and keeping our families at home safe, and I don't think there's anything that can be more important than that.
And will airstrikes do that on its own, Rick?
I don't know if they'll do it on its own, but it's certainly the first start to possibly a longer journey to keep our shores safe.
What else is involved in that longer journey, George? Because you're a mayoral candidate for London, and part of the justification of this was these airstrikes will keep us safe.
The opposite's true. There was no terrorism coming out of Iraq before we invaded and occupied it. Even Tony Blair has now conceded that. ISIL, as President Obama said, is an example of unintended consequences. And he says we should generally aim before we shoot. And both of them are right. It was our invasion and occupation of Iraq which created ISIS that we're now intending to bomb. But, of course, I'm in favour of fighting ISIS, but on the ground. And as the Prime Minister has ruled out our forces going in on the ground, and rightly so, we have to support the people that are fighting them on the ground. Instead, we're doing the opposite. Our ally, Turkey, NATO ally, has an open border for these terrorists and allows these terrorists to sell their oil, stolen oil, across their border. Saudi Arabia, our best friend in the Middle East, bizarrely, is the fountainhead of all of this. It's the financier and it's the ideological fountainhead. It's their extremism.
Explain that to people, George, because I think a lot of people find this so complicated. And you're basically saying, are you saying that Saudi Arabia, because of their religious ideals, having ISIS actually purports that message, spreads the word, is in their favour?
Well, they're the centre of the extremist ideology. I'll not go into all the theology of it, but it's the theology that ends up with people's heads being cut off and their hearts eaten. And we've been supporting these people through Turkey, through Saudi Arabia in the form of allies, but also in so-called non-lethal military aid and money, which has all ended up in the hands of these extremists. So stop supporting the extremists and support those that are fighting the extremists.
Just in terms of support, the Prime Minister last night, he turned on his own MPs and he said, look, if you want to be aligned with this bunch of terrorist sympathisers, is that what you want? Would you recognise yourself in that?
No, and Mr. Churchill would never have spoken about parliamentarians in that way. It shows, I think, a lack of judgment on David Cameron's part, which is another reason why I think this is a very bad idea, this war, because his finger's on the trigger, his judgment is flawed, the whole plan is a shambles. It doesn't even have the support of the Daily Mail, and there are not many wars that don't have the support of the Daily Mail or the Financial Times. Many right-wing commentators, people like Peter Hitchens, many of your viewers will be familiar with in the Mail on Sunday, strongly against it. So it's not because we're pacifists, still less because we're terrorist sympathisers, but because we don't think it will end well.
Well, we asked you whether you would vote in favour of Cameron's plan to bomb Syria, and this is the result of our poll. You might find this interesting. 67% said no, 76 said no, 24 said yes. So, Rick, what would you say looking at that?
Yeah, that's quite interesting, but just to go back to a couple of points there, I'm not sure why we need the Daily Mail's support to go to war with anybody. I don't think that's really relevant. And also to say that there was no terrorism in Iraq. I saw firsthand, you know, Saddam Hussein's palace was where we were based after he was overthrown. Outside, people were living in poverty and mud and huts while he dictated and ruled that country in absolute terror. And to say people like that aren't terrorists and it didn't exist is completely
But Rick, why
against
is this our fight?
Because we have a bigger responsibility to the rest of the world to, you know, make sure everybody's safe. We're very lucky in this country. And yes, we want to keep this country safe, and that's part of that, but also to aid countries who aren't as lucky as we are.
But there would be a lot of people that will be watching this that will be saying, because we went in initially, because we fought other wars based on facts that weren't necessarily true, or all the facts at the time, that we've made mistakes in the past, could we be being too hasty? What would you say to them?
Were the weapons of mass destruction? I don't know. I certainly didn't see any for myself, but I certainly saw that they needed help over there. We helped provide that, and I do believe, particularly in Afghanistan, that the operations that we took stopped those terrorist groups from doing attacks in the UK.
Rick, I'm looking at the polls. The Times have run a poll today, front page of the Times, and initially after the Paris attacks, people are saying, yeah, drop bombs on them, get in there. George, that's changing. It's changing today. It seems to be, according to the Times and the poll that they've done, that more people are now wary of this and are against this.
I think by the hour, support for the Syria plan is waning. We haven't had the Chilcot inquiry report into the last big war that we went into. So it's a bit of a rush. If we don't know what mistakes we made in Iraq, why should we think we'll not be making them all again?